Hello everyone! Welcome to a new series where I attempt to explain every Pokemon's type. Today we are tackling every Pokemon from Kanto, so let's get started. All of the Grass, Fire and Water starters are those types for balancing and general game design reasons of having a distinct elemental type that formed part of a type triangle. Outside of this, I will bring up further connections to these types as well as secondary types of the starters. The Bulbasaur line is grass type due to having a plant growing on its back, although it varies in appearance throughout the line. It appears to fully flower into the corpse flower. As for its poison type, the corpse flower, while not poisonous, does smell really bad, hence the name. The line is also inspired by frogs, some of whom are poisonous. The Charmander line is a fire type, due to being a salamander, both the real kind and more importantly the kind from European myth, which is also a fire elemental. Charizard itself is a mythical European dragon, known for breathing fire and also being a reptile. Cementing this theme further, since dragons are depicted as having wings and being able to fly, that is why Charizard is a flying type. It is not dragon type due to the fact that would upset the game balancing I mentioned earlier. The Squirtle line is based on tortoises which can't swim, but look a bit like turtles which can. Pokemon often conflates the two, so it's water type for that reason. Some people say that Blastoise should be part steel type due to the metallic cannons it has. I assume they didn't do this in Gen 2 either because the metal isn't prominent enough on the design, or because they don't want to retcon a starter Pokemon's type due to it taking away from its identity, which really isn't an issue when it comes to form changes. However, do remember that when I talk about retcons, I mean a specific form's type. I will mention that Mega Blastoise's design probably doesn't change so much to warrant an additional steel type either. I won't mention this for every time a Pokemon gets a Mega, only if I feel like I really have to. I do want to make a video just about Megas as well. If you're enjoying this video, why not like, comment and subscribe? Make sure to check out the links in the description, and why not consider being a patron or member today. The Caterpie line is a straightforward caterpillar, cocoon, butterfly metamorphosis. Caterpillars are insects, so bug, and butterflies are winged insects that can fly, so bug flying. Similarly, the Weedle line is grub, cocoon, bee or wasp metamorphosis. They are also insects, so bug. And since the real world adults have venomous stingers, and these were adapted into the line starting with Weedle itself, that is why it is poison type. I also feel I should mention now, for the crowd who wanted this line to be bug steel, Pokemon have only retconned new types to add to previously monotype mon, or as a replacement to the normal type. As of this video's creation, of course. So since this line already had a fitting dual type, it didn't seem necessary to change it. Time for our first of many normal flying bird Pokemon, the Pidgey line. There are several others throughout the series, especially in Gen 1. Since I'm pretty sure all of them have this type for the same reason, I'm just going to refer to them all collectively. If I feel like I need to go back and add additional context, I'll do so when I get to them chronologically. But all of these mon are flying type due to the fact that they can fly, as they are birds. They are also normal type due to the fact they're just birds, since normal's often used as the regular animal type. The Rattata line are just some rats, and nothing more. As I said for the birds, normal is the regular animal type. The Ekans line are snakes, and plenty of snakes are venomous, so the poison type is perfect. Some think it should have been dark type due to its malevolence, but since a lot of venomous poison types tend to wish harm for their victim, I don't see how poison doesn't just cover that alone. According to a Game Freak developer interview, the Pikachu line was created around the idea that they would be the embodiment of the electric type, so therefore it has to be electric for that reason. The Sandshrew line are pangolins, which like to burrow in the ground, hence the ground type. It could also be inspired by their namesake, the shrew, as well as armadillos, both of which like to dig as well. The Nidoran line appears to be an amalgamation of many venomous creatures, and non-venomous creatures for that matter, but still have enough of them to justify poison. That and the fact that they're all about needles, sort of like stingers. Nidoqueen and Nidoking also appear to be based on Baragon from the kaiju movie Frankenstein Conquers the World. Baragon likes to dig, hence the ground type for them. The Clefairy line was originally normal type, since its concept of a celestial fairy who is probably from the moon didn't fit any other type, and normal is a type that also covers Pokemon with concepts that don't fit any other types, and not just regular animals. It's the typeless type, as it were. In Generation 6, it was retconned to be mono fairy type since, it it's a fairy. Also, the moon seems to be represented mostly through the fairy type. Not entirely, but with moves such as Moonblast, as well as other lunar Pokemon being fairy type. There appears to be an association, probably due to how fairies are typically nocturnal, coming out on full moons and such. The Vulpix line is based on the Kitsune, a fox yokai from Japanese folklore. Kitsune were said to have supernatural powers. Some wonder why Ninetales isn't Fire Ghost, Fire Psychic, or even now Fire Fairy, but people fail to realise the fire type is the supernatural power the designers chose, that of breathing fire. The Jigglypuff line is normal type, seemingly both because it's just a regular animal and some nebulous concepts that don't fit the other 14 types. They're a cat and a rabbit who sing. Originally, the fact that it's to do with the moon, since it evolved through a moonstone, is squishy, like pudding, and mischievous was fairly typeless. But as of Generation 6, this got considered as fairy type coded. But in addition to the already existing reasons for it to definitely be normal, which are also just as important to it. The Zubat line is flying type because it is a bat so it can fly, but it's poison type because it's based on the vampire bat, which has anticoagulant saliva, meaning that when it drinks blood, the blood will remain liquidy for it to drink. So in a way it uses a chemical it secretes to kill you, or even simply because bats can spread disease. The Oddish line is grass type because it's based on a plant, and poison because it's based on the corpse flower specifically, which is stink. Hey, wait a minute, this is the same reason as the Bulbasaur line. There's no but, it's literally just the same. The Paris line is bug type because it's based on cicada nymphs, basically not a fully grown version of the bug. It also makes sense because the whole line is based on some fungi which infect bugs, including cicadas. The bug part makes it bug type, the fungus part makes it grass type. I hear people claim that the fungus part's infecting behavior also makes it bug type, but all the fungi that all mushroom Pokemon are inspired by all work with spores, which tends to be grass type, just like all the Fungaimon. The Venonat line is bug type because gnats and moths are bugs. And it's poison type because Venonat is likely based on the venomous caterpillar, and Venomoth is likely based on swallowtail moths, of which many are toxic. The Diglett line are moles. Moles like to dig in the ground type. The Meowth line seems to be based on regular cats, domestic and large. Meowth does have Maneki Neko inspirations, which are clear, but Good Fortune as a concept doesn't really have a type. And when new types were introduced that could describe it, either they didn't describe that enough, or maybe Meowth was just too iconic to change due to its popularity in the anime, even to this day. Psyduck and Golduck are ducks. In a way, if it's a regular creature with nothing special, but its habitat is water, it usually gets the water type. People wonder why it's not a psychic type, due to its psychic abilities. Bear in mind, not all Pokemon with psychic abilities are psychic type, since there are plenty of non-psychic type Pokemon that learn psychic type moves. If anything, not being able to handle its psychic powers probably means it isn't proficient, which wouldn't make much sense for the psychic type, since that implies proficiency. As for Golduck, my theory is that it's calmed down a bit, maybe not built to be psychic, but isn't troubled by its abilities either. The Mankey line seems to be based loosely on the southern pig-tailed macaque, who have a strength-based hierarchy, so perhaps that plus the bipedal stance making it easier to add more fighting type elements like boxing gloves is why they decided to make the line fighting type. The Growlithe line isn't easy. They are clearly loosely based on dog statues such as those depicting Komainu, which are part dog part lion. Arcanine does have various aspects relating to big cats after all. The only thing that I can find is that it might be based on the Shai-Chi, which I have definitely butchered the name of, and how they consume fire. I'm willing to posit that it just looked like it could be fire type due to the feline influence, and many big cats just look like they could easily become a fire type. Plus, cats symbolized fire and the sun in ancient Egypt, so perhaps that played its part. Since Arcanine is beloved, no one questions why it is fire type, but I did need to break that down for completion. Although the Poliwag line is based on a specific phenomenon, there isn't really anything special, so since it lives in water, it is water type. Poliwrath gains the fighting type due to being more muscular. Since the line was somewhat anthropomorphic, it makes sense to just make it fighting type. The Abra line is the personification of magic. Out of the 15 types, Psychic is the magic type. If you're wondering why it didn't also get Fairy in Gen 6, the magic isn't really a natural kind with fairies, but definitely more of the I'm gonna bend this spoon with my mind type of magic. The Machop line, conversely, is the personification of strength and muscle, which is what the fighting type is all about. The Bellsprout line is based on pitcher plants. The grass type I think is obvious, and the poison type comes from the digestive liquid pitcher plants use. They are carnivores after all. The Tentacle line is, at least in part, a jellyfish. They are aquatic, water type, and venomous, poison type. The Geodude line seems to be an amalgam of rocks and earth. Not quite fitting into either the rock or ground type exclusively means that it should probably be both. The Ponyta line is fire type, because it's on fire. The reason why it's on fire is because it likely draws inspiration from many fiery seeds from mythology. The Slowpoke line is water type, due to being based on aquatic creatures such as hippos, salamanders, and, in Slowbro's case, hermit crabs. The psychic type appears to be, ironically enough, because they are super intelligent, but don't really know how to use it unless a Shelder bites it. The Magnemite line is electric type, since it is a magnet, and is essentially acting as a personification of electromagnetism, which is the manipulation of electricity to cause magnetic attraction to happen between two compatible objects. None of the other 14 types fit, so it stayed that way until Steel type was introduced in the following generation, where it gained said type because magnets are typically made from metals, especially the specific magnets the Magnemite line appears to be based on. The Seal line are aquatic mammals, and therefore water type. Dugong gains the ice type, due to more specifically referencing lows in colder habitats such as the Arctic Ocean. The Grimer line is poison type, because they are living piles of toxic sludge. The Shelder line is water type, because they are based on clams. Cloyster gains the ice type because, there doesn't seem to be a reason. My assumption is that they looked at the design, saw the spines on the shell, and thought that they looked like icicles? There isn't any official source to explain why, but that's my best guess. Also, many clams are found primarily in icy or arctic waters, so that could be why Shelder evolves into an ice type. Granted, spinier clams tend to live in warmer waters. Any of these reasons could work, maybe even a combination of them. The Ghastly lines are ghosts, so ghost type. The poison type is because Ghastly is also based on poisonous gas. Gengar seems to be based on Cheshire cats, which float a lot like a gas. Ghosts and Cheshire cats are also depicted with a sort of gas, a miasma, if you will. Onyx is a rock snake, so it is a rock type. It also likes to burrow underground, like worms do, so ground also works. You could also say there are ponds and rock pythons and earthworms. The Drowsy line is based on the Baku from Japanese folklore, which are dream-eating tapirs, which is what the Drowsy line are. Dreams occur in the mind, so psychic type. The Krabby line are crabs, who live in water, so water type. The Voltorb line is electric type because they're based on Pokeballs, which are mechanical. They didn't gain the steel type due to Pokeballs not actually being made from metal. I'll talk more about that in the Hisui video. The Execute line, despite being based on eggs, are also based on seeds and palm trees, hence their grass type. The line is also psychic type due to Execute having a hive mind and Executor having multiple faces, expressing emotions, due to possibly being inspired by the Japanese Jinmenju, trees which grew heads and all expressed joy, or even the Buddhist Asuras, multi-faced demigods, each expressing a different emotion. The Cubone line is ground type, likely because of the prominence of bones in their design, which typically get discovered underground. They are also reptilian, likely due to being based on dinosaurs, who were typically reptilian. At least they are in pop culture, and who we knew existed thanks to their bones, which were found underground. Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan are personifications of their respective martial arts, kickboxing and, well, boxing. Fighting is perfect. Lickitung is all about the tongue, likely being based on salamanders and yokai whose tongues were a notable feature. Now, out of the 15 types, which one is the tongue type? Lick is a ghost type move, but there's nothing that screams ghost about Lickitung or its design origin. And it's not really slobbery. Water doesn't really work either. In fact, none really work, other than normal, where all typeless Pokemon reside. None of the types added after Gen 1 fitted either, so normal it has stayed. The Coughing line is poison due to being clouds of toxic gas. The Rhyhorn line is ground type, likely for a few reasons. Their horns are prominent due to being rhinos, whose horns are made of ivory, which is a bone-like material. Bones are ground type as I stated before. Rhinoceroses also live in more dusty and arid plains, perhaps not exclusively, but enough of an association may have been there to justify ground. What is rock if not hard ground? I say it's due to the thicker skin this line has. Chansey! It is based on eggs, a variety of animals, healers in RPGs, and luck itself. These are all very nebulous, so normal works. Why did this pink healer not become fairy type in Gen 6? Probably because it's a small factor of its design, so there probably wasn't really much point. Yes, it's Nurse Joy's Pokemon, but they don't really promote that much anymore. Plus, Fairy isn't strictly Leclerc type, so normal still works. Tangela is grass type, since it's a pile of vines. Kangaskhan is normal, seemingly due to the themes of Mothership. Fighting could have worked well too in my opinion, but the designers clearly didn't think so. That said, this mon is far from dainty. I mean, look at that stocky build. The Horsey, Goldeen, and Staryu lines are all water type, due to being aquatic creatures. Starmie in particular is psychic, due to also being based on stars. Psychic is commonly used for the cosmic or astral. Why Staryu isn't psychic is likely because it is inexperienced. Starmie has extra arms after all. Mr. Mime is psychic type, because mime artists typically pretend to be trapped in invisible walls, which can easily be interpreted as psychic projections. It was retroactively given the fairy type due to it resembling elves and other fairy creatures. Scyther is a mantis, a bug that can fly. Jinx is ice type, due to being based on the Yama-Uba, who is a yokai that lives in the mountains, which are cold. It may also be based on the Yuki Onna, another yokai whose name translates as Snow Woman. Circling back to the Yama-Uba, it also sang songs. Like a lot of myths, typically of women luring men with their beautiful singing voice, putting them in a hypnotic trance. And since hypnotism is perceived as altering someone else's mind, psychic works well. Electabuzz is an Oni, who typically wore tiger skins. Not only do tigers look like they could be electric type already, but the thunder god Raijin is an Oni, so Electabuzz is likely based on that, being electric as a result. Magmar is fire type, due to likely being based on the myth of the Karuara, a divine creature with the head of a bird and the body of a human. It also breathed fire. Pinsir is a stag beetle, which is a bug. Tauros is pretty much just a bull, so normal fits it well. The Magikarp line is a fish, so water type. Gyarados isn't dragon type, despite being based on dragons. It is flying instead due to being an eastern dragon, having ties to not just water but the sky as well. Perhaps also being based on the Koinobori, Japanese windsock shaped like fish. Gyarados is also based on the myth of a koi that leapt up a waterfall before transforming into a dragon. In essence, it flew, which is also probably why flying fits more than dragon. Lapras is based on the Loch Ness Monster, so lives in water. Scotland, where the myth is from, is kinda cold. Trust me, I live here, but I guess perhaps not cold enough for the ice type, but Lapras' shell reminds me of an iceberg, so that's why I think they made it ice type. Also, the dinosaur which Nessie is most likely inspired by, the Plesiosaur, lived in frigid waters. So yeah, it was the cold water after all! Ditto literally turns into any and all Pokemon. How do you type that? Normal, because it's typeless. Eevee is interesting, since its whole point since the start is that it evolves into a variety of different types, starting from a neutral state. Normal. It seems like the choices for the types stemmed from different shape language that could be made, and the designs probably came from the decision to type them. That could apply to any of these mon to be fair, so I'll just say the inspirations that justify those typings. That's likely mermaids for Vaporeon, the Raiju, a Japanese myth to do with thunder and lightning, not to be confused with the Raijin for Jolteon, and a red fox, which are orange, so fire, for Flareon. Now, if I missed anything, please let me know. I could make a future video about Eevee and the Eeveelutions, as well as their design origins, if there is more to say here, but for now, I'm going to move on. Porygon is made from code. You could argue that it could be electric type, but the thing is, it isn't made from electricity. Code isn't electricity, it's just powered by it. You can't really say code is an electric elemental. There isn't really an associated element. It is artificial. There isn't anything like it. It's unique. Normal is the type for a completely unique Pokemon. All of the fossils are rock type due to being resurrected from fossils, which are rocks that have been imprinted by a prehistoric animal. That kind of breaks down with Aerodactyl, since the old amber isn't a rock, just some tree sap that hardened, but perhaps it follows the same logic. I'll get to other theories when I talk about Mega Aerodactyl, which would be in the Megas video. The water ones are aquatic creatures and Aerodactyl can fly. Snorlax is a hibernating bear, a normal behaviour for a regular animal. The legendary birds are all flying type because they can all fly, because they are flight birds. All three have the main three magical attack types, ice, electric, and fire. They are also likely based on mythical birds from around the world. Articuno is probably one of the many birds who live on top of mountains, Zapdos is the American thunderbird, and Moltres is the Slavic firebird. They all also represent seasons. Articuno is winter, since both are cold, Zapdos is summer, since both are bright, and Moltres is spring, since both are when things start to warm up. The Dratini line are serpentine dragons. Despite living in the water, they aren't water type, probably because of their more mystical inspiration being more of a focus. Plus, Game Freak didn't seem comfortable with one dual typing evolving into a different dual type yet, since Dragonite is a flying type, since it can fly. Mewtwo and Mew are psychic type. Mew's designer said that it was based on Mewtwo's. So why is Mewtwo psychic? Well, it's the most powerful Pokemon in the game. so naturally it has to have the strongest type. It also characteristically feels like an embodiment of the psychic type, being sort of humanoid and very intelligent. It also kinda looks like an alien, and we know psychic is the space type. And that's the original 151! Next time, I will cover the next 100 Pokemon from Johto. I'll see you all then, cheerio!